This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for therapy. If you are experiencing mental distress, please seek professional help.
We are all simple miracles.
Welcome to the Wellness Project Podcast. I am your host, Wilson. Each episode aims to bring mental health awareness through exploring psychoeducation, scholarly literature, professional interviews, and the personal stories of people's journey to mental wellness. So, with that said, let's get started.
So go line your pockets with anything gold. 'Cause what good is a conscience if it can't be sold? And we are all simple miracles.
Hey, I hear you.
Perfect, man. Well, welcome back to the Wellness Project Podcast. Before I introduce our guest today, I just kind of want to give a little bit of background from my own personal experience, and it really has to do with being outside. And I really feel like being outside allowed for people into my own psyche and having nature. I feel like today I just don't see that as often. I feel like even just with my friends and my family growing up, a big part of that was being outside. It was fishing. It was building forts and strengthening those human connections was something that really helped me kind of foster my own mental health. So. Kind of speeding forward, I moved to Port Clinton, Ohio, which happens to be the walleye capital of the world. And a really good friend of mine, Jeff Hild, and I were in our garage one night, and kind of it dawned on us that there isn't a fishing club of any sort, to my knowledge, in Port Clinton. So did some research and happened to come across a nonprofit organization called Fishing's Future. And today's guest is Shane Wilson, who is the founder. And welcome to the podcast.
Michael, thank you. I'm very honored to be on the podcast, by the way. Thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome. So yeah,
so where would you like me to go here, Michael?
Yeah, well, I don't want to say at the beginning, but start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about growing up and maybe tied into what your career was.
Fantastic. Sure will.
Actually.
I was born and raised in Indiana, central Indiana, on a farm. Taught the ethics of hard work and appreciation of the four seasons. We don't have four seasons down here in Texas, in the southern tip of it. We have hot, hotter. We have what we call hotum, and then we have hot again. So, but I grew up in Indiana.
What part of Texas?
South Padre Island. It's a little tropical island, 2.5 miles off the mainland, connected by a 2.5 mile bridge. And the South Padre Island itself, running along the island, is about 5 miles long, and it has 3 major thoroughfares. When I say thoroughfares, 3 major streets that run north and south, and then there's a little cross street. So I'm a good, what I would say, Michael, a driver and a 9-iron to the golf, and probably a driver and maybe a 2-iron, if you can hit a 2-iron, to the bay. So all the water that surrounds me is salt. Jeez. No, it's a long ways from central Indiana. We don't have many islands in central Indiana unless it's in the middle of the White River. But when I was 18 years old, I was standing out with my dad, and he goes, what do you want to do? And at the time, when I was 16, I bought 19 feeder pigs, and I put them on the farm. And I thought, I'm going to raise these feeder pigs and keep some to go ahead and farrow out, and then I'll save enough money to go to college. And when I was 18, I was getting ready to run out to college. College was never an option for Shane Wilson. It was just the next step. If you want to have a graduation, you graduate from college, not from high school or 6th grade or kindergarten for that matter. It was just the next step. So my parents were in education and the medical field. So that's how I was brought up. But I was brought up fishing my entire career. And when I was 18, my entire life, I should say, when I was 18, my dad said, "What are you going to do? You know, you've got 10,000 some odd dollars in the bank." And I said, "Dad, I'd like to buy some property on an island." And he said, "What do you want to do that for?" And I said, "Well, God stopped making island property, Pop, and it's going to be a good investment one of these days." And he said, "Why don't you take that money and invest it in your education, pay for your education, get a good job, work diligently at it, save your money, and then buy a piece of property on the island." And interesting to me, I followed that advice. That was good, sound advice. But while I was growing up, Mike, I was spending my entire time in the pond. When I was born, my granddad built a pond so that he could teach his grandchildren how to fish. And I remember coming home from church, every Sunday, and the church was just a little country church, 17, 24 people that attended every Sunday. So I remember coming home from church and many times getting yelled at because granddad would be sitting down at the pond, and I'd jump out of the car, the back seat of the car, and start running down to Mom and say, "You get back in here and change your clothes." Now, so that's how I was grown. That's how I grew up. And we always went to northern Michigan to fish the Manistee River for walleye season and bass season. And I had been doing that my entire childhood. And so fishing was a very, very important part into my development and how I developed. And, we always spent time. Dad, like I said, was a principal, and Mom was in the medical field. But every year when school was let out, we would go north for 2 weeks to fish. And I've always fished down to the pond. Dad would take me down there, and we would always have cookouts and stuff when I was real, real little. And it was a great bonding time for our family. I mean, when we got out, we left everything. Mom would take a couple of weeks off from work, and Dad was out for a couple of weeks from his principalship, and we'd run north to Michigan or we'd run someplace else. But it was great family bonding time. And my senior year, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. My senior year in college, I was probably running around with what I would call the wrong crowd. And I was making a lot of dumb decisions that were not healthy decisions for me, both emotionally, spiritually, and definitely not physically. Well, I was sitting out in the boat. Well, again, we were up to the Manistee River, and I was sitting in a boat with Dad. And, and he knew there were some issues going on, but he was very quiet in that aspect and never really dug too much, maybe because he didn't want to know what was actually going on. But he goes, "Where do you go now?" And I said, "Dad, I think I need to transfer." Now, this is my senior year of school. And he said, "What do you mean transfer?" And I said, "I just think I need to transfer. I need to leave the environment that I'm in." And I made that decision in the boat. Now, that decision probably saved my life. It definitely changed my life. So transferring, I lost a few credits. So I transferred back to Ball State, which is Muncie, Indiana. I transferred back to Ball State, finished my undergrad, went ahead and got a master's there in education. I'd always been very good at teaching when I would babysit. And yes, I babysat. When I would babysit, I would, teach the children that I was working with. I'd teach them various things, card tricks, how to play pool, depending on where I was babysitting. It just, I was always teaching. And I taught my dog how to do all kinds of wild things. If you understand Pavlov, you can pretty much train anything.
Right.
And people are about the same. You can behavior condition things pretty easily. So I went into education, and I went into elementary education. And I went into that because at that time, there were not a lot of men elementary teachers, especially down into the lower grades. So I finished that, got my master's in educational leadership in the corporate environment. And lo and behold, I find myself working for many years in an educational, in the public schools. And then I still playing in the fishing industry, I came out with a patent. And the patent allowed me to get some product in to Cabela's and into Bass Pro and Gander Mountain. And I had some big time individuals that were big on the circuit at that time help get me there. And I thought, this is pretty decent. I didn't make a lot of money, but I had a product that I had patented and it was out selling. So long story short, I guess long story shorter, because it's still going to be a long story.
That's fine. That's the great thing about a podcast format,
I fell in love with Stephanie, married Stephanie. And years after that, her folks had moved down to South Padre Island out of Muncie, Indiana, quite a few 25 or so years prior to all of this happening. And he had a heart attack. So we moved down, left the snow and the cold regions and moved down to the island. Now, all along that whole stretch in between us moving down to the islands, that was in the early 90s, until when I was born, I had always fished, and I had picked up fly fishing. I'd learned to fly tie flies. So I mean, I was really into the whole fishing component, and had fished. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so it sounds like to me though, like fishing has always been a part of your own mental health. It's been something personal for you.
Well, it's very personal for me, and it's very much a part of my mental health. A lot of people go to fish to escape life. I escape life by living life, and I fish because that's where I should be. I should be on the water. If somebody asks me what's your favorite kind of fishing, my favorite style of fishing is simply to wade. The other day, I had a couple of families out that were paraplegic and a quadriplegic. We were out on the boat and we were fishing with them. And the paraplegic asked me, he goes, "What is your favorite rod?" And I said, "Any rod that has a fish on the other end of it's my favorite rod." So the fishing component to me has been very, very strong because it allows me to spend time with my family and to talk with them. My wife doesn't fish, unfortunately, and it's a good thing she doesn't, because if she did, we'd do nothing but fish. But it allowed me time to spend time with my son, who's an avid fisherman now. All of my friends fish. I shouldn't say all of them. I would say the majority of my friends fish. And it's just a way for me to socially bond with nature, for me to socially bond with other individuals. And as I reflect back on the life that I have lived and the fishing opportunities, I fished with Larry Bird, I fished with Reggie Miller, Coach Bob Knight, before he passed, was a good friend and a fishing partner. I would never have met these individuals had I not been passionate about fishing and spending time outdoors in nature.
Yeah. So it's I think for people that maybe don't have much experience with fishing or might not realize that it's very little about catching fish. At least I think so. It's because that old saying of that's why they call it fishing and not catching.
No. You're very, very correct in that aspect of it. The catching of the fish is the icing on the cake to me. Just being out there. If the fish aren't biting, I'm still out there. I'm still away from, what people call the doldrums of life. That's, and we have to do it. A lot of people work so that they can do their hobbies. I turned my entire life of education into a fishing educational organization, where now that I am retired from the public school systems, all that I do now is work with families and teach families how to spend time together. I, fortunately or unfortunately for me, I experienced the loss of a child. And that's something that's extremely devastating. Shouldn't happen, but it did. And it taught me two things. It taught me how to really understand and be apathetic to those individuals that suffer a serious loss. It also taught me that spending time with family, be it grandparents, parents, kids, nieces, aunts, and uncles, or just the fishing family of friends, is vitally important. When Shane Wilson leaves this earth, and I will, the only thing that's going to be left for me is memories that other people hold. So that's the kind of a legacy that I am trying to leave. I value friendships. Friends are the most important thing that I think all individuals can have. And the most important thing that I can give those friends is not monetarily, it's not materialistic, it's time. It's time with me, or it's time that we can spend, time in general. I can't go backwards. Nobody can go backwards. If we can figure out how to reverse time and go backwards, we'll be completely rich and we won't know what to do with the money that we have, but we can. So we go forward and we try. I try to give as much time to others as I can. That is what drives Shane Wilson today. That is what gives me the energy and the food and the what do I want to say, the strength to carry on. So I came down to the island, which is, I fished in now all 49 states and 11 of the provinces. I've set an IGFA fly rod world record. I have all kinds of accolades back behind me. You can see I'm fishing with George Bush 41. I was asked to come fish with him, and obviously I took a couple of days off and did that because that was quite an interesting thing to do. But the fishing to me is just a way of life. If I'm not around water, I'm hollow.
Yeah. From someone that's from Columbus, Ohio, I never grew up too much around water. There's Buckeye Lake, but like, I gotta be honest, there's nothing like Lake Erie. And now that I've moved up, here, I cannot not live by water. I absolutely have to. It's such a different mindset to be by water. Like my wife would always say down in Columbus, that she missed the lake. And I'm like, I mean, there's a puddle of water right here on the sidewalk. Like, what do you mean? But there's something about lake life or, ocean life, but living by the water, absolutely. It's good for mental health.
It's great for mental health. Now, a lot of people see water as a vacation or a recreation. And a lot of people in this day and age, when they go to do that recreation, they take alcohol or other, other vices maybe out there, and it becomes more of a party environment. That's not the water that I prefer to live in. I prefer to live in the water environment that's full of recreation and it's full of life and vigor, and it gets me out. And you can watch the blue herons that are out there. You can watch the birds. You can look up and you can feel the tug on your pole. So there's people see water as different components, but I am an individual that has to be around it. Yeah. It's very soothing to me, very comforting. And if I can be in a stream like the Maumee River or like some of the, because I was up there in Port Clinton visiting you, and golly, the Lake Erie is just an incredible lake. I'd fished it before, but never had gone out and fished it seriously like we did when we were together. But to fish some of those rivers and the flow into it, and to stand in that water, and it's cold, and your feet are numb, and you're out there fishing, and all of a sudden you feel something on the end of your rod, and you watch it take, be it with a fly rod or on a spinning rod. All of a sudden your feet aren't cold anymore. There's a whole new focus, and that is how I recharge. That is how I go about it. But simply sitting out there, I've been out on rivers, and I've watched otters work a school of ducklings. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating. I've watched osprey come down and take a fish out of the water. I watched eagles fly over, which is just mesmerizing. And I think more people, and you're absolutely right in your opening statement. You said a lot of people don't spend a lot of time outside.
No, but believe it or not, Jeff and I are going to do a podcast here soon, so I don't want to talk too much about the content. But when I was doing some research, I as sad as it is, statistically today, people spend 90% of every day inside. 90%. Like, think about that, from where you sleep, you wake up, you get in your car, you go to your job, you go to a restaurant for lunch, you go back in your car to work, back home. It's just 90%, Shane. I was mind blown by that. So to me, that's even more important to spend some time doing some podcast on just, the importance of being outdoors. You know, we really need that.
That's an understatement. When you say we really need it, it's almost a chronic disease that's taking over. I was doing some jury duty and was being, sitting in a jury pool to be selected, and I was sitting with another principal at the time, and we were talking about education as principals do when they get together and they're bored because they're waiting to be picked or dismissed, one or the other. And I was telling him that a student had asked me if he could take PE online. PE was my favorite subject. I got to go outside. I got to play dodgeball. I got to do things. It was my favorite subject in school because I longed to be outside. In fact, before this podcast, I spent the last 2.5 hours outside on the tailgate of my truck repairing 2 reels, just simply because I'm putzing around right now. But it's outside. I work on all of my fishing equipment outside because the sun, the nature, the air, the breeze, the rain, whatever it is, to me, it's invigorating. And, if we don't, there's all kinds of research out there, Michael, and you know this, that kids do better on tests just to be able to view green leaves outside a testing window. They do better in tests when they're open and exposed to 5 or 10 minutes of outside in nature. And I've spent my entire professional adulthood in the field of education, and I've made it a huge study. There are 2 types of leaders out there. There's a lot of followers, but there's 2 types of leaders. And if you're a leader on a playground, you're generally a leader through bullying. And you just tend to go that route. If you're a leader out in nature, what happens is you become a leader in nature, and that transit, but you become a leader in nature because you problem solve. You're thinking of ways to get across that stream without getting your feet wet. So, you walk around and you see a tree that's a blowdown that's across the river, or you move rocks so that you can have a footpath. I mean, you're just all the time solving problems. Nature is far more important to our development as we grow up, and especially from the ages of about 1 to 8 or 1 to 9, it's critically important that these kids spend time outdoors so that they understand what outdoors truly is and the enjoyment that it fulfills and puts in our lives.
Yeah. And so to sort of segue too, because I think for me, finding out about fishing's future and, getting to meet you, there's a lot of emphasis on how nature, has a positive impact on ourselves. But what I think is amazing about fishing's future and what you've done is that you've taken it a step further to then bridge nature and spending time fishing to family bonding, and that connection that being outdoors not only has within yourself, but I think outside of yourself to other people. So walk me through sort of the first time. Think of a funny fishing pun if I can. When you first hooked on to fishing's futures concept, let's just say.
Okay, I was the director of the alternative program down here on our local school district, and what that is, when I was going to school years and years and years ago, what they would say back in the good old days, which the good old days are tomorrow, because everything's coming ahead, and you make what life is going forward, not looking backwards. The children that were being kicked out of school were being sent to my campus. And these were good kids. I mean, when I would get kicked out of school, they would literally kick you out of school for 3 days. And I have to admit, my dad was principal of a school in our school district. And I would be kicked out of school or get in trouble 2 or 3 times a year. And it was during opening deer season, and it was during opening bass season or opening squirrel season. And Dad was okay with that. I'd do something silly, and get 3 days vacation because they literally put you out of school And so usually it was on a Friday and I didn't have to go back to school till like Wednesday. And it's like, oh, cool. So I got 3 or 4 days to hunt and I didn't have to come back home so quick. So, but I mean, I'm digressing a little bit, but I did those things so that I could spend more time outside. What they do now is they kick you out of the regular campus and they send you to an alternative campus the majority of them are ran like boot camps. Kids, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. Well, those kids had a hard time conforming to the rules and regulations that were laid out by public school systems. And they would come over to my center, which was the alternative, or my campus, which was the alternative campus. And I taught them in an alternative method. They're good kids, they're just bad decision makers. And over the 12 years that I held that position, I realized that these kids are making bad decisions because they don't have any parental engagement that's quality. Parents will say, well, I'm involved in my kid's life. I take him to soccer practice. He's in soccer, he's in baseball, he's in basketball, blah, blah, blah. I go to his band concerts. Well, I can go to a soccer game and sit as a parent. That's all I'm doing is cheerleading. I'm a cheerleader. Same with the football or baseball or everything else, unless you're instrumental in coaching. And then you're screaming at your kid because he's not doing what you want him to do because you're holding him at a higher level, to a higher standard than the rest of them. So, anyway.
What I hear you saying, though, is more like focus on the quality of the time that you're spending with that child. It's really, and it's difficult to measure the quality, but we all can at least have a baseline of, you driving your kid to soccer practice, kicking them out of the car to go play soccer is not of high quality,
It's not the time that the students that I was dealing with, which had been kicked out of school because they were non-conforming in the school. And they would come to me and I was like, these are good kids, they're just bad decision makers. So what can I do as an educator to hook the parents and kids back together and to get them back engaged so that they could spend that quality time? And it's not the quantity of time, it's the quality of the time spent when you're with the individual. And that's where my focus was. So I thought I've got to keep these two kids, or I've got to hook the families back and keep the families together forever. So I took the 2 words families forever. And that was my mantra for a long time. Keep the families together forever, 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 families forever. And I took the 2 F's from families forever. And I made that symbol right there. That's 2 lowercase f's, the top one. And then I turned the other one around and I made them a hug. I was born in Indiana, central Indiana, on a farming community. We hug when we see people. So I want the parents to hug their children because that's quality there. That's human touch. That's bonding. So I took the 2 words families forever and took the 2 F's from those 2 words and made the fish. And I thought, okay, now I've got a really cool logo, but what am I going to call the organization? What can I do to call? And Dad always told me, he said, son, education is your future. Get a good education, you're going to have a decent future. And I thought, well, and I'm an educator and I'm a good educator. I thought if I educate and teach the skills of fishing to families, then I really am fishing's future. And so, the name fit. It had 2 F's in it. I've got Families Forever with a really cool logo. Now I've got a name, Fishing's Future, and it's Fishing's with an apostrophe S, because if we do nothing but angling education, we really are fishing's future. And over the years, I founded that in 2007. Over the years in 2018 or 2018, we did our millionth participant. And, we've continued to grow and continued to do what we do. You have opened up your own Fishing's Future chapter in Port Clinton, the walleye fishing capital of the world. And when I was up there visiting with you, I caught walleye.
Yeah.
So,
just a little bit of information that I actually found out today. Very exciting about Port Clinton. The 2024 National Walleye Tournament will be in Port Clinton, Ohio, actually, April 18th and the 19th. So it's very exciting news.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge event. Fishing's Future is going to hopefully set up a booth there. I want to get back to your story, but yes, we have started a Ottawa County Fishing's Future chapter right here in Port Clinton. I don't have an email address yet, but I'm going to set up a local Gmail account so that way folks that are in my area can be able to reach me. But Jeff Hild, I have to give him all of the credit, has set up a actual work space, workshop studio where we're going to be being able to host families and work on some tackle and doing fishing education there as well. So just kind of want to put that plug in there kind of now, but go ahead.
Well, I'm going to look at my calendar, see if I can't run up during that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And then there's a couple of other meetings I have set up for you in July when you are up here, but we'll save that for.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of those old walleye pros that I've known for almost going on 30 years. When I came out with the patent, a lot of them started using some of the stuff that I was doing. So it would be nice to get back and see some of those guys and shake some hands. Long time friends, haven't seen them in years.
Wow. That's crazy.
I've been in the business. I've been part of fishing my entire life.
So just tell the audience a little bit about the curriculum, or sort of what does a Fishing's Future camp look like?
Fishing's Future camps are basically set up around 5 different individual stations. And they're the 5 basic skills that you're going to need in order so that you can come to a camp completely ignorant of the sport. You can learn about the equipment. You'll learn the essential knots that you need. You'll learn how to rig your equipment so that you can go fishing. You'll learn about the things that you need in your tackle box. You'll learn habitat, why fish are where they are. You'll learn the individual species from your local waters. And then you'll learn some of the rules and regulations that govern the sport of fishing within your state. And we do it as a family. We don't do it, parents don't drop their kids off. Before I retired, parents would drop their kids off and I had them from 7:45 to 3:30. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. And I started Fishing's Future to keep the family together. So when we have, let's say we have 20 families show up, and they're going to average 4.3 members per family. So you've got pretty much 80 people, plus your volunteers at an event. We divide them up equally into individual stations. So 4 or 5 families will go to the knot tying station where you'll learn 2 or 3 different knots, or you go to your equipment station, or you go to your tackle box basics, etc. So that the quality of the education that you get at each station is quality. It's pretty much one-on-one, and the children and the parents all participate. Hang on, that's my wife. Let me.
Sure. Well, and I was going to kind of jump in and say that the program is catered and designed for people that have zero fishing experience, which is something that was really interesting and sort of excited me, because I think that's important too. A lot of times with these fun recreational outdoor hobbies, you feel like you have to be an expert at them to start them, and that is not what Fishing's Future caters to.
Exactly. It's not. In fact, you're in Port Clinton, the walleye fishing capital of the world, and there's not a fishing club there. Yet They're hosting the National Walleye Tournament. So people that fish already fish. But those people that are fishing learned to fish when they were young, young, because their parents or their grandparents used to do it when they were young and they enjoyed it and they wanted to engage with their children at that level. So the camps that we do are specifically designed for the novice individual. Now, we do have, advanced classes or advanced camps. We do fly fishing. I taught fly fishing about 2.5 weeks ago to some folks. But, pretty much the basic family fish camp is come and learn how to fish. And then after you go through those rotations, and each station is about a 20 or 25 minute station, and you rotate through. So it takes about 2.5 hours to go through each, all five stations. After that, we usually eat. I think it's important for a family to eat together. So, we bring hot dogs, and we'll have hot dogs and water and chips. Then After that, I think it's important for us to teach how to protect our environment, to become environmental stewards. And we have about a 10 to 12 minute trash cleanup. That's the only type of tournament that we run when we run a sponsored event. And we call it our trashy tournament. You know, you or your family, here's a couple of bags, here's some silicone rubber gloves. Yeah. Run out there and for 12 minutes, pick up as much trash as you can. And then they bring all that back, you know, and when you know, I as the orchestrator run out and start picking up trash too. When I say go, I put everything down and I go. I want them to see me. I'm leading by example. And I'll go pick up something. I don't care what family's close to me. I'll put that in their bag and then I'll go pick up other trash and put trash in the other bags because I want to exemplify what I'm talking about. And I want to make trash fun. And I do it this way, Michael. When I kick this off, I say, boys and girls, I want you all to look around. I want you all to look around and tell me what you don't like. And invariably it comes up pollution. Look at the litter over there. Shane, look at that, you know. And I said, that's right. And it got there because people didn't care enough to throw it in the trash. And those kinds of people that do that are called pigs. Boy, they sat back. And I said, boys and girls, people that throw litter on the ground are called pigs. I want you to say that. People who litter are pigs. And the boys and girls say it right off the bat. People who litter are pigs, and their parents are like, oh, we can't say that. And I said, no, say it. Parents, say it with them. Say it with them. And they're like, oh, golly. And I'm putting it on them. You know, I mean, I spent 30 some years in education. And this is my program, and I'm going to run it how I want. Boys and girls, say it with me. People who litter are pigs, and they're all saying it. And then I stop and I freeze them and I say, now you can't say that in public. Oh, you can think it, but you can't say it in public. You can't call somebody a pig for throwing trash down. But the person who throws that trash down and thinks it's okay is a lot worse than somebody that would say that to an individual. I said it's politically incorrect to call somebody a name because they're doing something wrong. But it's even more politically incorrect for them to throw their trash down and think that that's okay. And then I say, okay, now let's go pick up trash. And boy, I'm telling you, they zoom out of there. And, you know, and while they're still picking up, then I blow my whistle and I say, come on back in. Teachers always have whistles. Come on back in. Come on back in. Here I'm playing with a little bait. Look at that while I'm talking.
Yeah, you just can't stop it.
Yeah, I can't stop it. So we all come back and we weigh the trash and we record it, you know, and we'll pick up well over 200 pounds of trash. If it's a public facility, if it's a city park, they're generally a lot cleaner, but we'll still pick up trash. And then I say, okay, now it's time to go fishing. And we'll take them fishing to a pier or to the pond or the little lake that we're around where we're doing this event, because they're all outside. We've done them in state parks. We've done them at fishing piers. We've done them, you know, at little community parks where there's lakes. And then we go fishing so that they can practice their skills. Mm-hmm. And when that little boy or that little girl catches their first fish, after they've spent all of this time learning the skills to do it independently, they're on fire. They're dancing with excitement. I mean, I've had little boys and girls drop their pole and start screaming when that fish comes out of the water. And the parents, this is the beautiful thing about this, Michael. The parents are standing right behind them, and they've learned the same skills necessary to fish independently. They've spent the last 2.5, almost 3 hours learning these skills and eating with their children outside in nature. And the sun is shining, and they've been feeling the breeze, and they're having a real good time. And then their kid catches a fish. The kid's elated, and the parents are standing behind them, beaming with parental pride. And very seldom does a parent get to feel that parental pride.
I love that term, that parental pride. But I was even thinking just being present, you know, not thinking about all the other responsibilities of being a parent and having that moment through fishing, you know.
Yeah. I like the term being present too, because that's where they are in the present. And they don't get that there very many times to share that present moment with their children. And all of a sudden you can see the gears start ticking, you know, they start thinking, this is something that we can do together as a family. Outside, we don't have to spend all of our time in front of TV watching our television shows. And, you know, we can do this. So that's that educational component and that experience that I've created for them. I'm not trying to create new anglers. Trust me, I'm not. There are many other organizations that are trying to get kids to fish. That's why they'll go and they'll fish through in a barrel or something, and they'll walk away with the new fishing rod and a tackle box. I don't give fishing rods away. I don't give tackle boxes away. When I do a family fish camp, I give knowledge and education away, and I give the experience to be able to do it. I do give baits away. I will say that. I'll tell the parents, these baits, because before a kid leaves, we bring them all up after we get done fishing. We present them with the certificate that they've now gone through a Fishing's Future family fish camp, and they are certified anglers to go out on their own.
Yeah.
And we give them individual baits, and we'll say, now, boys and girls, you've got baits that work. You know they work. Parents, if you want to continue to do this, go to a store and buy some fishing equipment, buy a couple of rod and reel combos, and go fishing next week. If you give them something, it devalues it. And they'll take it home and something will happen and they won't know how to fix it, and they'll set it in a garage, and they'll come back to your event next year only to get another fishing rod that they can leave in the garage for 324 days or 334 days out of the year because something happened with it. I teach them how to use it. I teach them how to work it. I give them baits that are proven, and then I let them go on their own. Hopefully they will fish on their own. And that's a program that has worked. As an educator, I developed and designed the curriculum myself. It's the same curriculum across any state where we have a Fishing's Future chapter, but it allows for the local angler. I don't carry Erie Dairies in my tackle box down here off South Padre Island. I don't, but you've got them up there and they work.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So that's the nice thing about it. It allows itself to be uniformed in nature, but the different knots, the different tackle that you're going to use, the different style of techniques can be adapted to the local communities. And that's what it needs to be, because every body of water has fish in it.
There's just maybe two more kind of follow-up questions, but one of the things that Jeff and I, being here in Port Clinton, have sort of, kind of realized just over this first year of doing it is how much or how people in our community are so willing to donate these piles and garages and storage units full of fishing gear, and for the families or for the kids that might not be able to afford it, or it was their great grandfathers and they would like to see that passed down. That's another, I think, component to Fishing's Future, right? Being able to recycle or upcycle old fishing gear has been just kind of cool too. Tell me just briefly, sort of like, you guys are all throughout the United States, how many chapters and that sort of a thing, and then talk to me a little bit about the I Can boat.
Okay. We do all of our chapters receive donated equipment from that people want recycled, and we do that. I've got a garage full of it. I go through it. In fact, those reels that I was working on today aren't my reels. They're reels that were donated to me. I go through each one. First of all, I enjoy doing that, but I tear them apart. I re-oil them. I re-grease them. I reline them. I make sure they're good so that, being prompt and being on time is another characteristic that our society seems to be losing. So the first person that comes to my family fish camp, or the one that shows up, I'll give them a rod and reel. And then over the course of the day, we'll teach them the skills, and then they will use their rod and reel that I have given them. So I guess I don't believe in giving out gross amounts of rod and reels, but I do provide rods and reels and other fishing equipment to not everybody that comes, but to boys and girls clubs, other city parks that need a loaner program such as that. We give those things back into. But the thing that I like about it is I get to spend time and go through it all and refurbish it and reline it and clean it up and tinker. I tinker now that I'm fully retired from the public school systems. So we do that. Now, I'll address the I Can in just a second. The thing that you wanted me to address just a moment ago was what? You had two items.
Yeah, the first one was sort of the magnitude of how far fishing's future has come, over how long?
Well, I
Years?
started it in 2007. And I started it because I saw this need to bring families closer together, not to make anglers. When you give a family that kind of an experience and they realize that, yes, this is something that they can all do together. It's one thing, Michael, to go out and to watch your son score a touchdown in a football game, and boy, that's great. He's your son, but you're not actually running beside him and doing it. When you're fishing, you're sitting on a bank, and you've got your son or daughter there, being 5 to 10 or whatever, however old they are. And, you're sitting there and you're watching a silly bobber. Where's my bobber? You're watching a bobber that's just sitting there in the water, not doing anything. And all of a sudden it starts to dance. Well, while it's dancing, you're looking at the clouds. And I used to do this all the time. I'd look up there and I'd say, "Hey, Dad, is that a teddy bear in that cloud? See a teddy bear? Oh, yeah, I see it. It looks like a dragon to me." "No, it's a teddy bear, Dad." And you look back up and your bobber's gone. And your dad goes, "Hey, reel, your bob, reel. It's all, it's oh boy, game is on. You're doing everything. And you bring in your fish, you look at it, and they either put it in a cooler to keep it, or you turn it back in and let it go swim free. Then you go back to, "Dad, is that a kingfisher over there? Is that what kind of bird is that?" "No, son, that's a Baltimore Oriole," or whatever. You're just out there in the present. And I like that term, Michael. I'm going to steal it from you. No, but because we're providing that as an avenue for parents to experience, we were giving them an opportunity to come learn about something that they could do for the rest of their lives with their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, aunts, uncles, etc. It's grown, and it grew. It started as one chapter here with my vision, and I wanted to expand it. And at one time, we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 73 chapters in 22 states. These chapters are run just by individuals just like you who volunteer their time to give back to their community, to teach a sport and to teach a love of a sport that can hopefully live on throughout other generations. Yeah. We now have, I think, 54 or 55 current chapters because the volunteers have had something happen in their life, and we call it going dark. They can't be active for 2 or 3 years. We've closed some chapters. We're now down into 17 states rather than 22. We are moving chapters all the time because when you have a volunteer that's running an organization, as the head of that organization, you can't tell that volunteer, "You have to do this." Well, a volunteer doesn't have to do anything.
Right. I mean, to some credit, though, I don't even think it's a reflection of your organization. I think it's just the times.
It is the times.
And that's what's so sad about it to me. I mean, if we think that 90% of our time inside is scary, what are we going to think when it's 93% and 94% or 99%? It's too much. So I think programs like this are even more needed in communities,
Yeah, they really are. And I agree completely with that. Time to spend outdoors needs to increase. I'll give you a real good example. We just closed a chapter and I need to go pick up the equipment. There was a husband and wife, and they weren't husband and wife when they opened a chapter. The female came to us and she said, "I love what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. I'm, a graduate of the university. I'm a biologist and I want to be a part of it." Well, lo and behold, she went off and got married. And he was very active. They ran 4 or 5 programs a year in their community, and all of a sudden they had a child. A couple of years later, they have 2 children. Now her time, she doesn't have enough time to give to the community like she was through Fishing Future. And she said, that myself and my husband just don't have the time anymore. We've loved it. So that's how chapters open and close,
Oh, sure.
So, and I'm very proud. We have touched in 2018, July the 18th, July the 26th, 2018, we did our 1 millionth participant, and we document our participant. Yeah. That was 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've continued to grow and continue to do what we do. Simply, and we don't advertise. It's simply word of mouth. Parents will go out and they'll say, hey, I just did this fantastic event last week. The next one they're going to have is in a couple of weeks. Go to fishingsfuture.org and go to the events page and you can see where they're having. So, it just grows that way. And people that retire, I have a lot of school teachers and firemen that are now master anglers, because both of them have, first of all, in their heart, the willingness to serve. That's why they've chosen those two professions. They also have the time to serve. Retired military, retired people that are retired have a little extra time, and they like to give back. And that's how we continue to grow and shrink and do the things that we do. Now, to talk about the ICANN.
Yes.
And that's a program that we launched it last year, June the 6th, 2022. I guess it's 2 years now, but I thought after we did our 18th or our millionth participant, I was laying in bed and I'm a religious individual and I was saying my prayers and it's like, Lord, where do we go from here? What do we need to do? And over a period of time, it came to me that we're touching the general public, but there's a population out there that doesn't get to experience what we're experiencing. And they're limited because they have physical disabilities. So I thought I want to do something for that group and make it another branch of Fishing's Future. Well, more thought. We're going to build a boat that's going to have wheelchair and medical bed anchor points so that we can take these people that are bound to a wheelchair or that, are laying around with a terminal disease and can't get up and walk around in a medical bed. So we're going to do something. So I needed to find the correct boat for that. And what we decided upon was a 26-foot tri-tune boat. And a tri-tune is simply, it's a pontoon with a middle tune, so it has 3 tunes underneath it.
Yeah.
Extremely stable. It floats very high. And I was lucky enough to find one of them. So we bought the boat and completely stripped it down. I was walking the dog one weekend and I came across an individual that was in a wheelchair and he was sweating and he was working. And I said, where do you live? And he said, well, I live here on the island. It's a small island, but I hadn't seen him ever before because he had just been released from a 1.5-year stint in a rehab center. 1.5 years. And he said, my sole purpose in life is to get strong enough so that I can walk again. Well, he had a certain vigor about him that I thought, okay. So I walked away from him. I turned around and I ran back to him and I said, hey, I need you. And he goes, what do you mean you need me? I'm in a wheelchair. I said, no, I need you. I gave him my business card and I said, I want you to come to my house. I want to talk something over to you. That was the final piece that I needed because I knew what I wanted to do with the boat. I knew what boat I needed. I hadn't bought it yet, but I knew what I needed. But he is a paraplegic. He was involved in a very serious accident that took his lower spine, and he's in a wheelchair and will probably forever be in a wheelchair. He still has a drive to walk. He can walk in a pool, but he can't walk on land. So I told him, this is what I need you to do. He at one time was a captain. And I said, let's get your captain's license again. I want you to be a captain of this boat. And I want you to bring your chair down and we'll put it on the boat. So we took everything off the boat. We took everything, pulled every wire. All we had was the boat frame and the deck. And the deck is aluminum. And we put his wheelchair up there. We lifted him up on the deck. We put him in his wheelchair and said, now let's design this boat for that chair and other chairs that are like it. And we designed a boat specifically. There's only 2 or 3 things that are solid. The rest of it is all movable chairs. We have the tie downs in locations where they need it. You've got 26 foot, that's 8 foot wide, that's virtually a flat surface so that wheelchairs and their family members can walk around. You get up on it, you'll think you're standing on a tennis court. It's huge.
Yeah.
But it's extremely stable. And a lot of these families have never been out on a boat before. So you need it to be stable. It needs to be secure. It is a very, very safe vessel. And so we named the boat the I Can. And the motto of that boat is I can, I did, I will again. In order to get on that boat, I have to teach you some of the basic skills to fishing. And then I'm going to put you on that boat and I'm going to let you practice and try those skills out in hopes that you can go fishing. I'm going to provide that opportunity. I'm not me. Fishing's Future is going to provide that opportunity. I did. I went fishing on the I Can. And I know that I can because there's a paraplegic that's a captain of the boat. And I will again. I'm going to go to a pier with my family and we're going to go fishing again. Or I'm going to go to a local pond or a lake or another body of water and we're going to fish independently. So it's a very, very, it's just I had two people out on it. Yeah, actually I had two families out on it yesterday. Both two individuals that were disabled, and we caught 14 fish. And, I cleaned those fish and I gave it to them and they took it to one of the local restaurants. They had fresh fish for dinner and and I don't charge for that. We run the ICAM program just like we run Fishing's Future off donations and through grants. Without donations and grants, we're dead in the water. We don't float anymore. But we are a nonprofit, and people, look at us and say, I like what you're doing. I'm going to give you I'm going to help support you. And they get the same tax break as they would if they'd donate to the ASPCA or the Red Cross or anything else. So it's my way to give back, Michael. It's my way to ensure that families learn to spend time together outdoors. Like I said, I'm not trying to make new fishermen. I'm trying to teach parents and give them an avenue so that they can rehook with their children and nature and spend time out there. We're not going to have environmental stewards if we don't teach them the importance of a beautiful and a clean environment. So we work on the conservation efforts, but it's if you've never done something and seen the light go off in an individual and a family, it is very, very rewarding internally. It's not an external gratification, it's an internal gratification. And that's why Fishing's Future is my life today.
Yeah. No, it's just, I just being so humbled and taking kids out and, seeing, it was shocking because like last year, we did our first little small event and, I had some buddies kind of volunteer their time, and like one of them was genuinely shocked when he asked this little girl, do you want to come fish? And she said, I've never fished before. He just jumped up. He's like, this is an injustice. And, got up to it. It was really exciting for him, which then was exciting for me to sort of see that happen, but yeah, we have a Fishing's Future chapter here in Port Clinton. So stay tuned for some more kind of updates on that on the podcast. Fishing's Future is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization, so you can donate to that. You guys have a UR code on the website, correct?
Yeah, we do, yes.
Okay, so at the end of this, I will maybe put that up. But Shane, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I feel like you and I have been talking. This is what our third or fourth conversation just in this week.
Right.
So.
Well, we Michael, we run Zoom classes we do a lot of training through Zoom classes, but a couple of times a year we try to pull all of our chapters together and we Zoom just to talk, and it's the communication, the excitement. I like to hear your stories. When you invited me up to Port Clinton, and I'd fished Lake Erie, but I'd never fished it seriously. I'd never been out on a boat. I'd always fished it from bank. When you invited me up to Port Clinton, the walleye capital of the world, and you told me there's not a fishing club up here, we need to get something started. It's like, hello, there's people that live in Port Clinton that have never fished before. That's mind blowing to me. So yeah. When I sat down and I talked with our master anglers and I talked to you, and I'm going to use you and Jeff as an example here. Your excitement, your vibrance, your passion to give back to your community in a positive manner just drives me more to make sure that I fulfill my end of the bargain to you guys and my end of the bargain to all of our master anglers and find the funding necessary to keep it running. Because even though we're a 501c3, and we're a nonprofit, you have to have funding in order to do what we do, in order to buy the equipment, in order to, in order to just put gas in the vehicle to go someplace to do something. So it'd be nice if you would put that up. It's fishingfuture.org, as you well know. But it's an honor to sit here and to talk with you again on your podcast. Hopefully, we'll get some parents to at least consider. I need to be more in the present with my children. That's so important. That's so important. So important.
Well, I think it's a great place to end this on, buddy. But yeah, thank you so much, Shane, and we will keep in touch. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the honor. Have a great day and go fish. Fish hard and fish responsibly.
Sounds good.
Hold each other close, walking in the rain. You were like a picture and I the frame. You were like the air and I a plane.
By the way, at The Wellness Project, we have merchandise. That's right, all mental health awareness themed products. We've got artwork, we've got shirts, we've got hats, we've got candles. We're gonna have one for like anxiety awareness, depression awareness, wellness awareness, which is actually out right now. That's right, you can get your own wellness awareness candle. What does it smell like, right? You have to come in and check it out. But if you hit me up on Facebook, or you can email me and I can give you that information. And thank you for your support.
There's a million places I could go, but so you